that I was referring to previously, that mounting this bracket to this plate that is welded to the frame is a little challenging, because for example, the top bolt, it slides in pretty smooth. You can put the nut on the back, good to go. The bottom one, however, as you try to push that in, it contacts that inner tube. So there's nowhere to put a nut on the back. And my initial game plan was to actually just put a self-tapping screw in there to hold the bracket together. But giving it a second thought, I think having a nut on the end will be more secure. So what I ended up doing was I enlarged that hole to 5/16 now, and I'll be using a longer bolt to at least get the nut threaded on. And then once I start tightening it, the bolt will center itself, or somewhat close to center, and will be a better secure for the bracket. Also put a foam pad between the bracket and the frame just to avoid any paint damage. So in the previous video, I actually added a nut in the middle as a spacer to space the arms of these far ends so it can actually take the headlight unit. What I ended up doing was I took that spacer out and tightened all the 4 bolts to strengthen this part, and just angled out these arms a little bit more so the headlight could work. Additionally, you will see this bracket that comes in the kit. Purpose of this is to actually strengthen these plates, and the way this gets mounted is, this is self-threaded, so the way this gets mounted is you basically put 2 bolts from each side. And the problem with this is, as you can see, I'm trying to wiggle this back and forth. There's a lot of play in there. And what tends to happen is, as you start tightening those bolts from both the sides, it tends to bend these arms closer together. Back to square one, the problem was where I couldn't slide the headlight unit in. So it's just bad. I have a strong feeling this is not the correct size. And either way, I feel like these plates are far capable. Looking at the thickness, it can hold the structure. I'm not worried about them bending or moving. Plus, this is gonna save some weight. So I think I'm just gonna stick with that. A couple other things to be mindful of as you're mounting these plates. First is this brake line. This brake line needs to be in front of the plate, and what I mean by in front is you can't really route it underneath and over, because as you're turning the handlebar to the far right, the line doesn't have enough length to make a full turn to the right, as the bracket will basically stop it midway. Same thing with the clutch cable, which is this one. So that needs to be at the very top. Do not route it underneath, because vice versa, as you're trying to move the handlebar all the way to the left side, there's only so much length for the clutch cable. One other thing that I do want to point out is the entire wiring harness cable. I ended up zip tying it to these brackets, because as we're rotating this back and forth, these tend to get caught up with the brake line, or they actually get pinched as you're turning the handlebar all the way to the left side. So make sure it clears the clip-ons, so it's far below, and it's zip tied, basically touching the plate, and then from there you can route it underneath into the headlight. Switch wirings for both the sides, along with the ABS sensor cable. Because the headlight doesn't rotate with the handlebar, just make sure it has enough slack as you're rotating the handle left or right. Now, my goal is to tuck all the wires in the headlight how it was from the factory. I do have a feeling the length of the wires are sacrificed at one point, so I'm trying my best to fit everything in here, unless I have to somehow zip tie all the wirings with this bracket so it can just hang underneath. But yeah, fingers crossed, hopefully I don't have to do that. So this was quite a false alarm, as only this piece of wiring actually can be placed within this headlight case. Of course, the headlight plug, as well as the high beam. The rest of the wiring needs to be outside of the case, because you can't really turn the handlebar to a complete left and right due to the length of these. So just to quickly give you a breakdown what my game plan is, for the left side plug and ABS wire, I'm actually just going to zip tie it to the side here, keeping in mind giving that extra slag. And then there's two wiring harnesses that are coming from the Speedo. So these two plugs, they need to be somewhere around here where they can rotate freely due to the length of those. And same thing on the right side. Again, I'm gonna zip tie the switches to the side frame, just having enough slack there. And rest of the things can just hang. I'll probably end up taping these or zip tying them just to make them a little secure. And yeah, so this is where I'm at currently and still figuring out as I'm going, so stick along. And to quickly go over the bolts to tie this fairing, as you can see, those two up there, the one that's horizontal, that's for the headlight, similar to how it is on the right side. That one right there is for the headlight. The other two holds this actual fairing to the front bracket. Then there's two of these bolts that actually tie with the frame. And I'm just using some foam between these panels to avoid any scratches or paint damage. For the top one, this also connects with this frame underneath. So on both sides, you got to line those up. And this is my biggest critique with this kit, is somehow the brackets don't seem to line up real well. First, I had the issue with the headlight bracket. Second, the bolts on the right side didn't line up. So I had to play around with that. And now, as you can see, the right side is perfectly fine. You can actually see through that hole. But on the left side, it's way off. It's like you got to slide this, and at the same time, you got to slide it down. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to loosen everything up. Maybe mount this first and then tighten those bolts. Oh boy, told you guys this is going to change the look of this. This is what you call a true Caferacer now. The sitting posture did change a bit. I would say previously my clip-ons would end right about here. So approximately lost probably like 3 to 3.5 inches. I don't know how my back's going to like that, but definitely will be a lot easier on the chest and shoulders, especially with this visor in the front. So hopefully the air will just flow over the helmet. And other than that, it looks really, really good. And I couldn't really get to the side panels and the belly panel as I was missing certain brackets for the belly panel. I did reach out to Autolog, and just a heads up, what they mentioned is the US models do not come with the brackets. And correct me if I'm wrong here. That's a little funny to me because it doesn't make sense, but hey, cool story. I did reach out to them. They're going to send me the brackets, and from there I could finish the side panels and belly, which is a lot easier than fitting that front fairing in. And I do want to ask the guy, the reason I find it funny, because all the models are manufactured in India. So it wouldn't make sense for an Indian model to have the brackets, but no sump guard plate. But the England models or US models, they don't have the brackets. Correct me if I'm wrong. If any of you folks down in India, if you guys think that it comes with bracket, oh well, then it was my call, you know. But they're going to send it. Alignment for the clip-ons, I found this to be the best setup, as the handlebar can rotate to a complete left and right. Uh, Simply, the trick that I found useful was make sure the middle bolt is flush with the top T. That will accordingly line up your forks. So tighten this first, then you can take turns to tighten both the left and right sides. And then the clip-ons should be just touching the bottom of the top T plate. Adjustment of the clip-ons, I would say a little over, if you think about this is a circle, right? A little over half a circle, that's where the bar should end. And with that way, as you move it left and right, it should clear the tank. Same thing on the right side. Now if you do tighten these clip-ons a lot closer, that could be problematic as it will touch the tank.